Hey, it's Hippopotomatic and I'm Seth Hippen, and I have a treat for you today. Not only do we get to see some awesome drawings from last week's prompt, but I also get to interview Dan Herring, one of my good friends. That was one of the artists from Sketch Club, but he and I have been friends since back in the Blue Sky Studios days, and so I asked him some questions about being an artist, and he was gracious enough to answer my questions. First, take a look at these awesome drawings. Love them. The prompt was Grandma's Blank. So something that belongs to Grandma, given to us by Horst Roberts, and we had some awesome ideas. Some were beautiful and some were hilarious. Now let's do the drawing for 3 random winners, and the first winner will get to choose the prompt for next week. Who's it going to be?
They look like mermaids?
I
have hair in my eye and my mouth now.
I know we look great.
Hey, Merry December.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas season.
Happy Christmas.
For December, I chose to put the names in this. This is a stocking that our last baby was born near Christmas, and when I delivered her, the nurses took her and washed her and brought her back in a stocking that someone had made and donated, and she was wearing a Santa Claus hat. It was so cute.
Oh.
Yeah, I cried a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see who won this week.
Okay, here we go. Mixed up. Go for it. Good sound effects. Oh,
Dang
is that
it.
bad?
If it broke.
Did I do that? I think it's still okay. All right. You did well. This is a lucky one, I think.
Okay, mate.
Oh, she had a ton.
Yeah.
Oh, you had very good odds for this week. Good job.
My favorite was the plastic couch. Grandma's plastic couch.
I never had a grandma with a plastic couch that I can remember. Maybe my great-grandma had it. Anyway, my favorite of hers was the grandma's panties. Those bloomers.
Also a classic.
Classy. All right. My turn. Tinnitus Kid!
Yay!
Good job! Oh, wait. Okay, mate. The one before, you get the prompt next week.
Yeah.
So, let us know. That'll be easy.
Yes.
Because you live really close.
Just down the street. Okay. Erickson Bros Studio 1.
All right, that's the dad. Very nice.
Good job, guys. I'm proud of you.
Thanks for participating. And thank you, everybody else, too.
Yep.
You did great.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. And stuff.
Sweet. Now let's take a look at the new prompt given to us by Erickson Bros Studios. What you got for us, Erickson Bros Studios?
Okay, Dan, what's this week's topic?
This week's topic is off-season Santa.
Fantastic. Off-season Santa. Of course, you gotta wonder what Santa does when he's not, doing Christmas. Personally, I think he might just live down the street from my house. I see him out doing yard work sometimes. Cool. Now let's talk with Dan Herring. Dan Herring is one of my awesome friends. I met him when we were both working at Blue Sky Studios, and he's a great artist, and I'm so happy that he's part of the Sketch Club. Dan's day job is as a lighter for, different studios for film or video games or VR, what have you. He's done it all. So let's pick his brain a little, see what he has to say. I tried to keep it down to 5 questions, but so many other questions just kept popping up as we were talking, so I may have snuck 1 or 2 in there between the 5 main questions. Here's Dan answering the 5 burning questions we all want to know about what it's like in his art world. First question: when did you first decide that you were an artist?
That's a good question. I grew up, both of my parents liked to draw, and they did artistic stuff, and I have 2 older siblings, and they both are good artists. So I always was around art and people drawing, creating art from an early age. I think it's kind of an interesting question because I think up to a certain point most kids are artists.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how you interpret the world, is you draw things and you try to, it helps you understand the relationships and the way things are. So I think pretty much everybody up to a certain age is an artist. And then there's a number of reasons why they stop drawing. Some have a natural affinity for it, some don't. Some people probably are like, oh, theirs is better than mine, and so on. I've seen that with my kids, actually. All of them drew, and they're all pretty good artists, but some have just stuck with it. And the other ones are like, man, I wish I could do that. I'm like, it's just practice, it's time. Like, drawing is definitely something that you can have a talent for, but unless you foster that talent, it's going to stagnate. So that's a long answer for, I think I was pretty young when I decided that I liked drawing and creating art. And then it was probably early teens when Batman the Animated Series came out, whenever that was.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, people can make this a living. They can make a career out of drawing. And I think that was kind of around the time when I was like, I think I want to create art for a living. So that kind of propelled me towards sticking with my art.
Awesome. So maybe teenage years is when you started down that path? Well, decided to continue that path?
Yeah, I wanted to be Bo Jackson. That was my number one thing. And if I couldn't be him, a dual sport professional athlete, then I knew I wanted to create art in some way. One of the things was my dad, like I said, he was a good artist, but he, for whatever reason, he had a family to raise too, and he didn't do that for his vocation. And so I was like, well, I would love to, I've been given this talent, I'd love to be able to do something with it. And when I kind of got more into animation and the idea that people do this for a living, that's what kind of started the wheels turning to where I was like, I think that's what I want to pursue.
Awesome. So you just always, you can't remember a time when you started, you just were always drawing? And
pretty much, yeah. I mean, I remember, I have these vague memories of, when you're a small kid, and I remember being really proud of some coloring that I did, that I stayed within all the lines. I have no idea what the picture was. I just remember this feeling of satisfaction from that. And then just, and I don't know if, I'm guessing a lot of artists go through this where it's like, you'll be sitting there doodling something in class, and people will respond well to it. You're like, oh, okay, I should do more of this. And then, you become one of the artist kids in the class, and that kind of cements who you are, kind of helps define your persona for a bit, whether or not you stick with it. But, I think a lot of kids kind of go through that. And so, by second or third grade, I was one of the artists in my classes. So yeah, this is all sounding really familiar. This is how it worked for me too. Okay, question number 2. Why did you choose your specific medium? Well, I guess we should back up a little and talk about what your specific medium is. As an artist, you try many different things, so maybe narrow it down to 2. Originally, I wanted to be a 2D animator, because, like I said, Batman the Animated Series was huge. I grew up on watching the Warner Brothers cartoons with my dad, Chuck Jones, all that stuff. And then when I got into the animation program at BYU, that was right when 2D was dead. Like Home on the Range came out, and there was like nothing. It was pretty bleak outlook at that point. And I'd always been interested in telling stories and not just creating art. And so I was like, well, storyboarding sounds awesome. So I kind of leaned into that for a while, but that's to me, it's a little bit harder to get into. And so I was like, okay. And I just, at this point, had my first kid. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to make this work, I need something that can sustain this. And of all the 3D things that I had tried in computer graphics, I really enjoyed lighting. So lighting and compositing is what I worked in film and video games. That was my main thing. And what drew me to that was like kind of a sense of satisfaction, to where, like, to me, and nothing against modelers and everything, but I didn't want to be like, hey, I made that table, or, you know, I made that tree or rock or whatever. To me, it was much more satisfying to be like, hey, I lit this scene, I made it look pretty, I was kind of the cinematographer of this shot and made the audience feel something. So that was fulfilling for me to have that, to be able to do that and achieve those things. So that's what drew me to lighting, and I did that for a number of years. But like I said, I've always been interested in story, and so I've always written and drawn my own stuff, tried creating graphic novels and stuff, and like I mentioned, I co-wrote and illustrated a book. And to me, that's really been a fun output too, or excuse me, outlet too, because you've worked on movies and you're always probably proud of the work that you do on that movie, but not always the end product. Like I worked on the first Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. I think it looks pretty good for what it is. It's not a great movie. and everybody who works in visual effects and animation has a movie like that, where it's like, yeah, we did. I mean, you worked on Green Lantern, right?
Yeah.
So
perfect example. Yep.
You know, it's a thing where you're proud of being a part of this team and the work you did, but you have no control over how good the story is. And so this was a nice outlet for me to be able to tell my own stories, whether or not they're good. At least it's something that I can control. So through my writing and through just drawing and drawing comics and stuff, I've been able to have that outlet. And that's super cheap too, especially writing. It's just words, you know, no drawings at all. So you can get through a lot of story without too much effort, at least as far as drawing things over and over.
Question 3. Can you outline your basic methods from start to finish on a project? I don't know if you want to choose lighting or illustration, but take us through like a day-to-day.
Sure. Kind of generally, the way most art works is general to specifics, right? Same like when you animate, you're roughing things out and refining. So I think that applies to writing or graphic novels or lighting, anything. For instance, lighting, usually, and there's a number of things you have to consider, like the mood, the feeling that you want the audience to get, what the audience needs to actually see, what you need to focus on. And so what usually happens is you'll have some key art that some artist has done to give you an idea of what this scene is supposed to look like. Depending on where you are in the pipeline, you might be the key lighter or master lighter. There's different names for different studios, to where your job is to take one shot that is basically the most pulled out version of that sequence, so you can see the most in that scene. You light it according to that concept art, and then all the scenes that are set within that sequence are then passed off to other lighters to go off of that. And the idea is just, okay, first of all, I need some illumination in there. I need to be able to see something. If you consider where the light source is coming from. And the thing about movie making, but especially in computer animation, is everything's cheating. But even in live action, all the lights that are there, you watch a Michael Bay movie, it's like, where is that light coming from? Like, it has no motivation. It looks cool, and that's kind of all that matters.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the thing with lighting in computer animation is, yeah, you want to try to make it look realistic, but looking good or cool or pretty or whatever the scene calls for is just as important. Because if you were to light it realistically, then it just wouldn't be as interesting.
Right.
And the graphics programs have gotten better to where there's ray tracing and things that replicate real life lighting better, and it's getting better and better. but you still have to go in and manually place lights to draw attention to certain things. So that's just get it looking, get it illuminated, and then kind of fine tune it and narrow down to what's the point of the shot, what is the emotion you're trying to get across.
Okay. How many days does it typically take to light a shot? And is there a lot of back and forth with the director?
So usually it's not with the director. Usually there is the hierarchy is you've got your team, you've got a team lead, then usually a visual effects supervisor, and then the director. And it depends on the studio and the setup. So usually you'll get a shot, and within a day or two, you'll want to have it turned around to where you can get feedback. So we have dailies called that because it's every day. So ideally, you can get a shot and then be able to show it the next day, because iteration is key. The more times you can get it seen, the better. You don't want to take a whole week and show it, and they're like, "This is great, but it was due yesterday, and this is the first time we've seen it."
Mm-hmm.
So usually, what we would do is we would have our team dailies, and then as soon as our team lead signed off of it, then we would have I don't think it was every day, but usually it's once or twice a week we'll have a meeting with the visual effects supervisor, or different title but same job basically, who would view all the shots that had been approved by the teams. So on Tangled, it was pretty cool. Once it got past the visual effects supervisor, then they would bring us in, they would sit us right between the directors, Nathan Greno and Byron Howard, and we would look at it with them. So that was cool. One nice thing was at that point, it had been seen by so many eyes, there was very little chance that they were going to reject it, because it had gone through all the steps. But it was cool to kind of talk to the guys in charge and have them give you direct feedback. So that was cool.
Nice. Would they give notes too, or was it here and there, just little things?
Yeah, usually it was pretty small stuff, because it had been vetted pretty heavily by that point, and they didn't want to waste their time. So
Right. Question number 4. If time and money weren't dictating your schedule right now, what kind of art would you be creating?
I think I would probably be making graphic novels. I love comics. I love the medium. It's unlike anything else, to where it's a perfect marriage of words and pictures, both of which are things I really enjoy. And I would just make them for myself. I'd put them out there, and if people liked them, cool. If not, we're assuming I'm independently wealthy and I can just do what I want, right? So
Sure.
Yeah, I just hang out and travel and make comic books, I think.
Nice. Any particular genre of comic?
I really like superhero stuff, but I don't know that I have anything new. I mean, Batman's been around for 80 plus years. They're still telling stories, but I don't know that I have much to add to that genre. But I really also enjoy middle grade kind of fantasy. So things like Bone, Amulet, things kind of in that world that are maybe some that are kind of connected to our world, but also like pure fantasy as well. So I've got some ideas of a portal fantasy one, and one with a ghost, and just all sorts of. I like stories that have some kind of a supernatural twist in some way. I like contemporary stories too. They're great, a lot of them, but my heart really lies with those things that have just a twist of the supernatural in it.
Nice. Yeah, very cool. Okay, last question. What work that you've done are you most proud of so far? Or if you don't even want to answer that, what would be a crowning achievement for you? Something that goes on your tombstone.
Okay. It's not Alvin and the Chipmunks. But I am very proud of the movie Tangled. I think that turned out great. It had been worked on for like 10 years, going through many iterations, but I think the final product was great, and just beautifully done. And it was the first CG princess movie Disney had done, a first musical. It was their 50th animated movie. So kind of some cool landmarks that I was able to be a small part of.
Yeah.
Cool. Personally, I would give most anything to work on a Batman thing of some sort. So, something, it could be a comic or a video game or a movie or anything, Lunchbox. I'd be happy to do something with Batman. I got close. I worked on the Incredible Hulk, and so we both have a little bit of comic book stuff in there, but Batman's my white whale.
For sure, yeah. Everyone has like a dream project or something, you just want to be proud of. And so Tangled, I would have loved to have been a part of that, just because it's a good movie,
Yeah, when that came out, and it came out against, I think, one of the last Harry Potter movies. Came out the same weekend or a weekend before or after, and so it wasn't huge box office, but it opened the door for Frozen. Far inferior, if you ask me. But it was just kind of like this really good, well-told story. It looked beautiful. It was funny, heartwarming. Had all the stuff in it. So,
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to be able to work on something like that, especially considering some of the other stuff I've been able to work on, which hasn't had those things.
Yeah. I get it. Well, I really appreciate you coming in and answering these questions. And
well, it's an honor to be asked. I really appreciate it. It's fun to discuss stuff like this, and especially working remotely, you don't often get those conversations that you tend to have at a studio where you just sit and talk about the craft and things like that. So this has been really fun, and I'm excited to see the future interviews you do, and hopefully glean some stuff from those.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be great. I can't thank you enough, Dan, for letting me ask those questions, and you are the first interview I've ever done. So thanks for letting me figure things out along the way. You're a great sport. Here are some awesome illustrations that Dan did, including the cover to one of his books, and I will leave a link to his demo reel in the description below. So check it out. He's super uber talented. Thanks, Dan. Well, if you want to see a video on the history of Santa Claus, click here. And if you want to see more Sketch Club videos, right there. Come on, do it. Ready, set, draw.